With the SolarEdge software ecosystem, you can save valuable time and close more deals. Get peace of mind from conception to installation using SolarEdge's intuitive tools. Start with creating a project in Designer, SolarEdge's free online tool that helps solar professionals plan, build, and validate SolarEdge residential and commercial systems. This graphical tool provides streamlined design process with automatic stringing and instant design validation. When your design is ready for installation, simply export the project to the SolarEdge monitoring platform. Your site is created instantly, including all the site's details and physical layout. During the installation process, scan and assign the power optimizers and inverters barcodes to the right location in the system physical layout using SolarEdge's Mapper app. Your site is now ready to start producing energy. With SolarEdge's module-level monitoring, you will get free, real-time performance monitoring and remote maintenance. Gain insight for production and consumption, battery charge level, and EV charge status, all with an easy access from any computer or direct from the palm of your hand.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's SolarEdge Designer webinar. This is our second of our stage designer webinar, where today we're going to be going over level 2 or intermediate session. I hope everyone's well today, enjoying the sunny weather. So here we are. So SolarEdge Designer level 2. This is our intermediate training. Myself, my name is Richard Fuel. I'm the UK and Irish sales manager for SolarEdge. And today we are joined by Chris Laver, who is our commercial project manager, who is going to be going through all of our roof designs with us today. So he's not going to just be doing commercial, he's going to be doing residential. And we've actually got 7 different roofs that we're going to be designing today, showing you the real world. Obviously, there's lots of different roofs out there that are available. And when you're designing, some of these roofs can be quite tricky. So Chris is going to be going through each of those with us today. So you've got both of our contact details just there, should you want to contact us. So we are all good with that. So as I've mentioned, this is level 2. This is the intermediate session. Last week we carried out the basic training, which I'm just going to go over very quickly to start with. Next week we have the advanced, and then the week after we have the expert training. It's just basically a guide the whole way through, because there's so much detail within Designer. There's so many different benefits and focuses for different roof designs. So we're going to hopefully go through all of those with you over the next 3 weeks. So just a couple of points to note. As normal, you need to be using Google Chrome. If you're using Internet Explorer or Firefox, you may not see some of the features, and sometimes you get issues with those browsers. So please use Google Chrome. You need a mouse. I personally just use a keypad, and the whole way through I'm using my left clicker, and then angles as well. So just to focus on the angles of your designs. Just a couple of things to note as well. We have got the ability for you to ask any questions or anything like that as well. So I'm just going to write in here now. This is where you can ask questions. Okay, so if you've got any questions throughout the whole session, it's only myself and Chris that can see the questions. So don't be shy. If there's anything that you're not sure about, please just drop them in there. As once again, I'm just going to write in here as well. Can't hear me. Please check your audio. Great. Okay, and then finally as well, this is a live session. So if we have any issues, any internet breaking, power going down to my laptop or anything like that, it is a live session. Okay. So yeah, if we can't see you, we can't hear you, so ask away for the questions in there straight away. So that's fine, just move that out of the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come over to the SolarEdge website first of all. And it's really nice to see, actually, following on from last week's webinar, the amount of people that actually came in and went onto the Edge Academy. So just to point out where the Edge Academy is, so up here we've got login. This is where you would normally log into the monitoring. This is where you can log into the designer. And just here we've got the Edge Academy as well. Within the Edge Academy, we've got lots of different training videos, the fundamentals. Once you've completed the fundamentals, the battery training is then in there as well. There's also the EV charging inverter training in there. And once you've completed the fundamentals, it also then gives you the ability to do the expert training. Once you've completed the expert training is for an electrician, it's for an installer, someone that's actually using our products. You then qualify to actually claim labour compensation from us, and that lasts for 2 years. So it's a really, really good process to go through, rather than actually coming to a hotel and seeing us there. Do it at the weekends, do it at the evenings. It's a really, really good training session. Over here as well, we've got the Learning Centre. Once you click on the Learning Centre, you can scroll down and you can see the different webinars that we've carried out previously, and also register for any new designer webinars that we've got coming up. Okay, so I'm just going to start by coming into Designer. Actually, I've already got the page open up here, so I'm just going to come over. And just here, we've got the Basic Designer webinar, which is the one that we carried out last week. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that one. Now, you may remember from last week, we put our red pin on the property. Once we did that, we came to the site modeling. We drew the outline of the property. We then came over to 3D. We picked our building up and we simply created our nice 3D design from last week. Okay. We then came onto the PV module placement, and we can see there as well, we've got our panels on there. We've got 12 panels, and that's an output of 4.32 kilowatts as a peak system. We then come into the electrical design. Now this here, first of all, just going to click on the inverter and press delete. Once you come in, once you've done your design and you've done your PV module placement on the left-hand side, ultimately you can come to any different stage on here on the blue bar on the left-hand side at any point. Once you've created the project, you can come to any of these different stages. So I'm just going to come back to the electrical design. Let's get rid of that inverter once again. Once you come into the electrical design, it will present you with the inverter for this system, okay? Now just here, to make point of this one just here, this is the actual oversizing, and normally it's set at 120% when you do a new inverter, okay? Once you do a new system. Now, as you saw before, it was suggesting a 4 kilowatt inverter. If I move this bar up and down, just focus your eyes down here on this section just here. So we've actually changed the inverter for this job. So if I move up to here, it then changed to a 4 kilowatt inverter. If I come higher, it's now changed to a 3.5, and just in there, we've got the 3.68. So generally speaking, on a residential property under G98, you would be using a 3.68 inverter. So just be sure that you're actually selecting the right inverter, and if it's presented to you, then you can change this to how you want to do. Now, sometimes if we increase the size of the actual solar panels that are on the roof, if, for example, say we have a 5 kilowatt PV array, we can move this dial up and it will actually suggest a different inverter. So if you're installing, say, 5 kilowatts of PV and you're limited to a 3.68 inverter, this is how you would change that inverter, just by moving this dial like this. If you're down here and you simply click on this inverter and you want to say, no, I'm just pressing delete, and I want to use the 3.68, there it is. Now it's working, it's great. But you can see it's actually presented us with 2 inverters for this system, and our actual oversizing now is 58%. So just move this toggle bar, don't change the inverter here, move the toggle bar at the top up here to then get you to the 3.68 inverter. Once again, just simply click on auto stringing. We then press generate, and we can see there we've got our inverter and we've got our power optimizers and our string all done there, nice and equal. Okay. If I then come onto the summary page, and if you remember, this is where we landed last week. So here we've got our design. Just simply click on grid view or satellite view to change the image. We can click on the edit image. We can spin it around. We can zoom in. We can make the property look how we want it to look. Okay. As I scroll down, we've got, I'll just press done. As I scroll down, we've got the 4.32 kilowatts, something I need to do, sorry. I don't know if I did this last week, I did. I just want to remove this. So I just want to show you. Okay, come back to the summary page. Okay, so as we scroll down, we've got our installed capacity of 4.32 kilowatts. We've got a maximum achieved of 3.68 kilowatt inverter and our annual energy of 4.5 megawatts. The CO2 savings and our equivalent of trees planted. As I scroll down here, it shows us the generation of this system. Okay, so this is obviously over a whole year. We can see we're generating much more power in April, May, June, July, August compared to January, February, November, and December. As I scroll down, I've got the SolarEdge modules, which I've got in there. And I've got my bill of materials. I've got my electrical design, which is showing the 3.68 inverter with one string of the 12 P375 optimizers, which are inbuilt to the actual panels themselves. But system loss diagram and the other things on there as well. So I'll just scroll back to the top. So right here, I've got an image of my property, and I've got the generation data on there as well of what the system's going to install. Now, at the very top up here, we can see I've got design 1. Now, if I want to actually just simply duplicate this design and perhaps show you something which is quite interesting, come onto the 3 dots, click duplicate, and now all of a sudden I've got a new design. So I've got design 1 and I've got design 1 in brackets. Okay. Now, if I come on here, click on the 3 dots now and then rename it. This one I'm going to write with consumption. Press enter. Okay. Nothing's changed, only the name. If I come back to the project info, which is the first tab, and this is where you may remember, this is where we set the location of the actual property. That was the name we gave it. That's the address. We've got all those different things in there as well. If I scroll down just here, I can put the customer's name in. So let's say, for example, it's John Jones. Just get rid of that. And then here we've got the opportunity to select if it's residential or commercial. We're already on residential. And let's say, for example, we know that the customer is using a certain amount of power in his property. So right here, we have to type in how much power he's using in kilowatt hours. So let's say, for example, the customer is using 4,000 kilowatt hours per year. Once we type this in, we can then type the consumption profile. So if I click on consumption profile, you can see it opens up a new window. Currently, we're on none. So right here, really nice and quickly, I can click on a family with school-aged children, and it shows that I'm using power in the morning and power in the evening with a base load throughout that whole day. Family with infants, so I'm using more power in the morning, power during the day, and power in the evening, again with a base load. Perhaps a single or 2-person house, you get the idea, more power in the morning and evening. Or they're retired, where they're using more power during the day, or perhaps they're more nighttime focused, where they're not using that much power during the day. We also have an option here for a custom profile as well. If we come on to custom profile, what we can do here is actually change the amount of power that's being used. And on the graph here, you can see that this is changing. So perhaps we can decrease this, or we can increase during the day. And we can basically set this to how you want to make it be for the way of the customer and how they're actually using their power. In turn with this as well, we can come down to the monthly consumption and we can edit and actually put the amount of power that they're using throughout that whole year. So we've got the 4,000 that we typed in, and you can see that we're using more power in January and February, less power in March and April, even less in May, June, July and August, and then in September, it starts to increase again. So we get a nice kind of power curve of what we're actually using in the property, okay? Then from this, once we're happy with that, I've just changed this, so I'm just going to change this back. So let's move that like that. And let's just increase that like that. And let's say we're going to go choose. So once we press choose, you can see now we've got the custom profile there. We've got the consumption on there of 4,000 kilowatt hours. We simply click apply. Once you've pressed apply, all of that information now is put into that summary page as well. If this is shaded out, there's nothing you can do, nothing's changed. If, for example, we change to Johnny, you can see right here, we now need to click apply, and then that will make the change. If you don't click apply, it won't apply those changes, okay? Now, if I come down to the summary page, the summary page now opens, and what we've actually got now, as I scroll down, is actually showing the consumption and the system production as well. So we were using 4,000 kilowatt hours of power in our property, and now the solar is actually going to be contributing 33.8% of that power. So therefore, we've now reduced our amount of power coming from the grid to 66%, based on 4,000 kilowatt hours and based on the profile that we set for that customer. Over here, of the 4.5 megawatt hours they're going to generate in a year, they're going to be self-consuming 30% and they're going to be exporting 70%. So it's a really nice understanding to show what the solar is actually going to do for the customer and how well it's going to perform. Do I need more solar? Do I need less solar? So it's a nice understanding to go for that. Now at the top up here, I can also
Richard.
now, yes.
Just got a quick question. Could you clarify the module that's being used? Because there's a couple of questions asking if the optimizers are actually built into the modules.
Sure, no problem. So on the module here, once I click on the module, we can see here that it's suggested the SolarEdge panel, and this is with the 360 watt SolarEdge panel. Now this SolarEdge panel, it's a panel made by SolarEdge. Excuse me. It's a panel made by SolarEdge, the warranties with SolarEdge, and it has the optimizer built into the back of that actual panel. Okay, so it's not that you have to buy additional optimizers. The panel off the pallet comes with the power optimizer built into the panel itself. Now, if you're using a different panel like a JA Solar, for example, once I click on the JA Solar, let's go for a 360. We can see the colors change that back to blue, to black. When I now come to the electrical design, because I've changed the panel, it's now giving me an error. So to sort this out, simply click on the inverter, click on delete the inverter. It now suggests to us, again, the 4 kilowatt inverter. So I'm just going to move that up to 3.68, which is there. And now it's suggesting the P401 power optimizer. If I click on auto stringing, press generate, and now we can see over here, we've got the 3.68 inverter, and we've got one string. If I come back to the summary page, as I scroll down, we can now see just here, it's suggesting the P401 optimizer and the JA 360 watt panel. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question. So the SolarEdge panel has the optimizer built into the back of the actual module. If you're using a non-SolarEdge panel, you have to buy the module and the power optimizer. Okay. Now coming back to where we were before. So just up here, we've got the generation and we've got the consumption. Now just up here, as you can obviously see, we're exporting quite a bit of the power. So what I'm going to do this time is, because I've got the consumption in this one, I'm now going to do the same thing, click on the 3 dots and just hit duplicate. And now what it's done is it's essentially just copied and duplicated that design that we've just done. But what I'm going to do with this one is I'm actually going to rename this one with battery. Press enter. So now I've actually got the original one here. Can't see it. So if I click on the drop down arrow, I've got the original one, I've got the one with the consumption, and I've got one here with battery as well. Now nothing's changed. Once again, I now need to add the battery to the system. So the battery, as you can guess, is actually in the electrical design. So if I click on the electrical design, and then over here, I then click on the inverter, and now it selects the inverter and everything's lit up in color. Just here below the inverter, I've got a little pencil that says edit. Click on edit, and just here you can see no batteries. So if I wanted to use the SolarEdge Energy Bank, which is our new battery, 10 kilowatt hour battery, simply click on that one and press done. And now you can see on our screen here, we've got the SolarEdge inverter with the SolarEdge Energy Bank. Okay. And this is where it gets really quite, well, I get excited by this. So once you come to the summary and reports page now, as I've mentioned, we have got the one with the solar, we've got the one with the solar and the consumption, and now we've got one with the battery as well. So as I scroll down with the one on the battery, we can now see that of our generation figures, we're actually now self-consuming nearly 60% of that power. And the exported power has now dropped to 40%. Most importantly, of the 4,000 kilowatt hours they're using, 66% of that power is now coming from the solar and from the battery as well. Okay. Now, why have we still got this red coming in? Well, quite clearly, it shows you just here. In May, June, July, August, we're generating a lot of power, but our consumption levels are quite low. So obviously, when you're introducing a battery into a system, it does depend on the demand that's actually coming from the customer. You can see in January, all of our power that we're generating is going to be used and stored. Again, likewise in February, March time, we've then got a little bit more excess power. So nice and briefly to explain, the red is the power coming from the grid, the green is the solar generation, and the blue line is actually the self-consumption, which shows you just up here as well. Okay. So I'm sure there's quite a few questions about that, but one of the beautiful things about this as well is if I click on the different design just here, when we come across, you can see the difference really nice and clearly of the actual consumption of the power just between those two. If I scroll up slightly, no, I don't even need to scroll up, but I will. Just up here, we've got the printer. Now, this is where you can print it onto a piece of paper. You can save it as a PDF and email it over to your client. And what you can do is simply click on this one as well. Same thing for that. So then you can present to the customer a solar system with a battery and a solar system without a battery. Okay. And then finally, before I pass over to Chris, one of the last things on here as well is this feature just here. If the customer then decides that they're going ahead and they're happy with your design, they're happy with your service, and that's what they want to go ahead with, you can simply come back onto the designer, open up the actual design that you've done, and then you have all of this blue bar on here as well. And then just here, we can click export. Now, once we click export, this then exports this platform. It exports the information, the panels you're using, the location, how many panels, the inverter, the battery, everything. All of the information then gets exported to the monitoring platform. So if you've been installing SolarEdge before, and then once the installation's been done, the guys come back and they give you the stickers and the serial number, and then you have to then create the whole design in the monitoring platform. You've already done it. You've done it in Designer. So once you've done this, once you click export, this then would then appear in your list of your sites on your monitoring platform. And then you can simply then just allocate the inverter and allocate the serial numbers to each of the modules. So that's a really nice stepping stone to go into the monitoring. Now, one other thing as well is, as you saw in the video at the very beginning, SolarEdge is a complete ecosystem with the software development as well. So we have the designer, we have the monitoring, and in between that as well, we also have a mapper app. Now, this can be downloaded from Google Play or from iTunes. It's a free download and it's called SolarEdge Mapper. Once you've exported this to your monitoring account, it will also show in your mapper app as well. So I'm just going to show you what actually happens with this. So this is actually a real life situation. This is from one of my colleagues, Martin King. And this is an example of what happens with the mapper.
Hi, Rich. So you've completed your design on the designer, exported it to the portal. I've gone into the mapper app and here's your site. I click on it, loads it onto my phone. And we'll see the layout you've just done. I'm choosing my starting point here. I hit QR code, starts up the camera. Easy as that.
So nice and clearly, as you can see, once you've done the design in Designer, you've exported it to monitoring. If you've got the mapper app, then your installers can actually then scan the QR codes of the optimizers directly on their phone to then map the whole system as well. Same thing with the inverter. On the actual monitoring or on the mapper app, there'll be the inverter there. Click on the inverter, scan the QR code of the inverter, and then you've mapped the inverter, you've mapped the optimizers all on the screen, and then the whole monitoring side of it is completed. The only additional thing that you would need to do once you get back to the office is then just add the homeowner's email address to that site. Okay, so that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to jump into all these questions now, and I'm going to pass over to Chris. So Chris.
Richard.
How are you? You weren't here last week.
I wasn't, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I was a little bit ill, but much better now.
Fantastic. So Chris is going to go through all the different designs. I can see your screen right now, and you can see on there's lots of intermediate designs. So I'm going to pass you over to Chris's capable hands. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to jump straight into site 1. As you can see, there's several sites we need to visit today. We're going to focus primarily on modelling the buildings, and we may add some modules as we go along, but we won't necessarily float all the way through to the summary report section on every site, or any site, just depends how we do for time. So I've located my property, I've dropped my pin, and I'm going to enter site modelling. We're going to look at this property here, potentially 2 properties, but we'll treat it as one. There's quite a bit going on here. We've got some staggered ridges, 2 gable ends here, and 2 chimneys. So I'm just going to select my draw function, pick a corner. It's going to give me a nice long line to begin with. So I've clicked once, I'm going to float the line, click again to terminate the line. I'm then going to come up and I'm going to pay attention to this area here. I'm just zooming in with my mouse wheel. I'm going to pay attention to this area here. And as you can see, as I go around, it offers me various different angles there. We're mostly interested in the 90-degree angle because that will ensure our building is symmetrical. So again, I'm going to terminate the line, come across, and again paying attention to this corner. And the software is now giving me an indication of a 45-degree angle with the back left of the building here. So I'm going to observe that. I'm down, again, 90-degree angle. Just going to plot the outline of my building. Software gave me the indication I was parallel with that line. And as I float this line across, I've got a dotted green line there to show that I'm in line with the first point that I plotted. Okay. What I like to do when I've got an outline of a building, simply click out of the model once with the left click, hold Control on your keyboard and press A, and it will display the angles. Sometimes, depending on the background, it's difficult to see, so you can just change it to grid view and you'll see that every line I've plotted is at a 90-degree angle, which is always a great start. Now we're going to draw in these ridge lines, and I'm going to free draw these. So I've selected my draw feature here again. I'm just going to float my cursor and not press anything until I get a blue spot. That indicates I'm in the center of this line. I'm going to click once, and again, I can draw at any angle, but I want to be at 90 degrees to this line on both sides. So I'm just going to bring this line up until it gives me the indication to finish the line. Click. You can select draw again, or you can double click on any polygon and it will start drawing. So again, I'm going to come at a 90-degree angle here, and the software is giving me the indication of where to finish the line. Simply join the dots. I'm going to draw the ridge line across. Again, you can see a nice angle here as I come across, and I'm looking for the software to tell me where to finish the line, which is there. Draw function again. Again, I'm going to carve at the correct angle. So when this line goes dark green, I'll zoom in, goes dark green, which is there, it's telling me that I'm parallel with these lines. If I float that up there, it's telling me there I've got the 90-degree angle I want to this section, and I've got the line here to the middle section. Nice bit of indication from the software. So click there, connect that line, simply draw that line through. That's the building modelled. So now if we go into 3D, I'm going to click in on my mouse wheel and spin that round so we're at the front of the property. Zoom in ever so slightly with the mouse wheel. I'm going to click once on this ridge line and begin to drag the building up. I've actually dragged that perfectly to 30 degrees, which isn't particularly helpful, so I'll drag that down a little bit. You can click on the roof facet and simply change the degree by double clicking on this section here. So I've changed that to 30. However, if I click on the roof facet, double click with my left click here, change it to 40, it changes all of the elevations to suit. And again, I'm just pressing my mouse wheel in to give us a 360 of the property here. But we need to add these 2 chimneys. So we're going to jump back into 2D. Now with obstructions, which is this button here, or obstacle, we need to ensure that our drawing is as horizontal as possible, because as we plot the obstacle, it will plot it in line with what we're seeing on the screen. So what I like to do is either using this black bar at the top or the black bar at the bottom, just angle it up, using the mouse wheel in, just to try and get it as straight as possible So now I've got an even distance across the bottom of the bar here, or the same at the top here. It's nice and straight in line with that. So I know now when I press draw obstacle, I come along here and add my obstacle, I know that it's at a 90-degree angle. Now, what you'll notice here is my ridge line doesn't necessarily match what we're seeing in the image that was overlaid. So there's a number of reasons for this. Satellite imagery can be taken on a skew, i.e. not directly overhead to the top of the property. And geometry and symmetry is more important sometimes than the image you're actually seeing, because we know that the symmetry doesn't lie. So I've added one chimney and I've added that one over the ridge line just to show you what happens when an obstacle crosses a ridge line. And we'll add another chimney in there, jump into 3D, and we can see our two obstacles here. So again, with my mouse wheel, I'm just going to position myself a little bit better. We can do one of two things. We can click once, click again, and just move our mouse up, and that will change the height of the obstacle. Or we can double click here. Say we know the chimney is 1/2 meter high. Simply put 0.5, and that will adjust the height to suit. And again here, I can click once, double click here, 0.5, and it will adjust the height to suit. So this one looks shorter because it's higher up the ridge. This site was pretty easily modelled just by following the indication the software has given us. So if we jump back into 2D here, and I click once, drag my blue box over the model, you'll see it displays all of the angles. And again, cannot iterate enough, the angles and symmetry are super important when it comes to designer. So quite quickly, we modeled a complex site there. We're going to move on to the next site. Number 2. Once again, the pin's already plotted. We're going to jump into site modeling. So this property here has already been modeled. And if I move into 3D, you'll see it's quite a realistic representation of what that property would look like in the real world. Again, to move around, I'm just clicking my mouse wheel in and moving my mouse, and it gives me the free rotate option. You can also do that using this button here. Same with zooming in and zooming out, or panning across the screen. When I pan, rather than clicking that, pressing the left mouse button and moving around, I like to use the right button on my mouse, simply hold it down, and it does exactly the same thing. It just says keep moving over here every time. So with this property, we've got what looks to be a pretty identical property next door. So what we're going to show you is if you hold your left mouse click in, drag the blue box over the property, everything's selected and it's showing us the angles. If you use the control function on your keyboard, hold control and press C, that is now copied to the clipboard. Move my mouse somewhere in the middle of this property, press paste, which is control, and V. It's pasted everything I've just copied from here. We can then click once and move the model as a whole into position, jump into 3D, and we can see it's modeled the exact same property next door. So it's a great time saver if you've got identical properties. Or let's delete this and model it from scratch. So to highlight everything, just pressing once on the mouse click, covering it with the blue box, and press delete. So let's draw the outline of our building. So the imagery isn't great here, and we'll show you a technique on a site, I think it's site 5, that will combat instances like that. However, for now, we'll just work with what we've got. So following the lines, looking for the 90-degree angles, the indication the software has given me, i.e. the dotted line there, telling me I'm in line with the first line I've drawn. But it looks like I've finished this line a little early. Looks like it should be more here. So I can simply click on the line once and drag that across. Very pixelated imagery there. Again, select my draw function, I can continue, come across, down, across, and again the software will tell me where to finish the line. Now in this instance, we've got a 4-hipped roofs in effect with 2 dormers. Let's find the center point and I'm just going to float a line across there, and I'm not going to finish that line. That's just going to give me something to aim for when I'm drawing these two sections in. So I'm going to click in this corner, and I'm looking for the angle, which is those two quarter circles, and I'm going to terminate the line where it meets the ridge line. I'm going to do the same from this back corner, looking for that angle. There it is. I can now get rid of this by pressing that line, pressing delete on my keyboard, and this section, press delete on my keyboard. I can then join these two sections up. Double click there, join that up. I can then find the center of this dormer, click once, and I'm going to bring that line up, ensuring it's at 90 degrees both sides. It's going to offer me a solution. That's going to take me to the bottom corners, and I want to be at these upper corners. So I'm going to drag it up even further, and the software is telling me there it's symmetrical both sides for my dormer. I'm going to do the same here. Find the center point, bring a line up, telling me where to finish the lines. Perfect. Set our chimney in the middle. There. Site's now modelled. Let's jump into 3D. So the default height for any model within Designer is 3 meters. If we're happy with the height, we can leave it there, or we can double click the polygon. All the lines have gone blue, and we can change the building height accordingly, so it's slightly shallower. We can then grab our ridge line, which is hidden by this obstacle. That's annoying. So let's bring the building up. Do you know what? This is the first instance this has ever actually happened. So I can't grab the ridge line because the obstacle is in the way. So what we'll do, we'll jump back into 2D. We're going to jump back into 2D, eliminate the chimney, back into 3D. There's our ridge line. Just dragging up with my mouse, and again the dormers are dragging with the roofs. Let's say I know that's 40 degrees. Super steep pitch. Jump back into 2D. Add my obstacle, nice and square. Into 3D. Right click on my mouse to pan, and then I can bring that chimney up there. So I've made the properties look different in terms of height. However, they are almost identical. So that's how to free draw, or we can simply select some lines and delete. So all the internal lines gone. What we can do is use this feature here, the inner edges feature. I'm going to click once. My mouse has now turned into a wand. I'm going to click in the middle of the model, and it's added all of these lines for me based on what it can see, the algorithms it's worked out from the image in the background. The only thing it's not quite picked out perfectly is the dormers. So we can fix that simply by grabbing this polygon, bringing it straight down to the middle, and the same with this one, straight down to the middle, equal both sides, back into 3D, and there's the property modelled, and you can change the pitch as you see fit. Again, click on a facet, double click here, enter the degrees you want, and press enter. And indeed, you can then re-add your chimney again, just like that, into 3D. And again, you can click the chimney and drag, or you can click once and enter a chimney height here. Let's go for a ridiculously large chimney of 3 meters, for example. So quite quickly there, we've given you a few different options. You can copy and paste that will replicate the model exactly. You can free draw the inside lines of the model, or you can use the inner edges tool located at the top toolbar here, and it will do most of the hard work for you. Okay, that's site 2.
Chris, wonderful. Just a quick question on that one while you're going into the next one. Can you draw a box around and select all the lines and then rotate the whole property? You can't do that, but what you can do is draw a box around it, press Control-C for copy, then Control-V for paste, and then you can actually spin it around if you wanted to. Once you've actually drawn it, you can't actually spin it around, but you can copy it and then paste it.
You can spin it around. That's what I'm doing here. So once you just need to click once, highlight, and you'll get this little circular feature here.
Well, that's new.
You can spin him round. Or, as Richard has said, if I delete that, for example, let's say I've copied this one with Control and C, and I'm pasting this one with Control and V. Let's say this property is ever such a slightly different orientation. You can drag it into position, slightly tilt it there to suit your background image. Yeah, they're always updating little things and trying to fix the workflow and trying to make it easier. So perhaps that's one of the newer features. But yeah, yes, you can do that.
Great, wonderful. I didn't even know that. So fantastic.
No worries. Site 3. Okay, this is a good one. I'm going to spend a bit of time on this one. Let's jump into site modeling. I mean, they're all good ones, really. But in terms of demonstration, this is one we'll spend a bit of time on. Okay, so effectively a row of terrace properties. We will treat this as one building, a commercial building. Just for the purpose of the exercise, we have got multiple obstructions on the roof. Some chimneys here, more chimneys here. We've got some hip sections. We've got some gable sections. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So let's select our draw function. I'm going to select the first corner, and ideally you want to select a nice long line, and bear in mind this line will dictate all the other lines that you're drawing afterwards. So for example, if I was to draw here and draw that line off, in order to get a 90-degree angle, I need to draw it there. So it tells me that my first line is off. Now that's obviously a severe example, but sometimes you can feel that your lines just aren't matching up to what you're seeing, or you know the imagery is true. That will be it. Your first line dictates every other line after. And you'll notice here these are diagonals, and we're looking at it from a 2D perspective. So rather than clicking and trying to follow the diagonal, we want to go peak to peak, or corner to corner rather. So again, paying attention to the 90-degree angles, clicking for the outline of my building. So I ignored, let's redo that so you can see. So I've ignored the indication the software is giving me there, just because it's trying to cut me too short on the property. So let's ignore that for now. Let's not ignore that one though. Let's keep in line with this line. And go here. Again, these are just single clicks following the indication that I'm in line with the other hip. I'm going to come across. Pay attention to that one, and then that's going to be in line with the first line that we've plotted. So now we know, again, we can select grid view, click out of the model once with left click, hold Control and press A on my keyboard. I can see that all the lines I've just drawn are at a 90-degree angle, especially for buildings like this, super important. Now we've got some options. We could add a ridge line here, or we can look at drawing our hips here. Let's do it this way round. Let's start with these sections here.
Chris, sorry, mate. On the right hand side, you've got the line that's with 256 next to it, but you're not slightly on the roof. Does that matter, or how can you move that so it goes onto the roof?
So it's quite subjective. This the image,
that one.
The image is slightly skewed. You can see some of the gable end here. But if you do want to move a line, then yes, you can simply click there, click once, hold, and then simply drag the line. Let's say it's there, for example. I'm trying to miss this section because it's skewed. You can see some of the gable wall there, for example. Again, if you wanted to move this line, you click once and hold it and drag it up there, but you can drag it off of your 90. So it will snap ever so subtly when the 90-degree angles are there. Right, I'm going to make sure now. Sorry, ladies and gents, just going to make sure that that's fully in line again. Perfect. Okay, so quick angle check again. Now I've just changed things, all at 90-degree angles, no problem. And it could be, Rich has got great eyes, that's 205. that's 243. It could be that they're meant to be identical. It could be that the properties have been built slightly differently. So if we wanted to try and match it up, 243, 244, good enough, but it doesn't quite look right to me on the corner of the building. So we're just going to wire that in and we'll leave it there. So let's find our center point on this hip, which is here, indicated by floating the cursor along this line here, and it will snap and go turquoise in color. I'm going to make sure I've got my 90, and I'm going to wait for it to offer me the suggestion on where to finish the line and connect those up. Now I know I'm perfect here, and the same here. Now I'm going to continue the line and wait for the indication just there. However, I'm in danger of potentially not being directly in the center or overlapping the ridge. So I'm going to leave that there. I just pressed escape and that stopped what I was trying to do. So if you've started drawing, but you've changed your mind and you don't want to draw the line, just press escape on your keyboard and it will put you back to a standing position. But just before I add that other line in, I'm going to find the center here, zooming in and out with my mouse wheel. For larger buildings, you'll find getting around the building is much easier if you zoom out because you can cover more ground when you pan. So we've got our center line in there. Now let's continue this line as we were, and it could be that it will meet perfectly, or it could finish just before, just like that. So it's not quite meeting the ridge, which is fine. Not all extensions or side parts of the buildings will meet the ridge, and then we're going to repeat that process over here. Draw, find the center line, make sure we're symmetrical here and here, wait for the software to tell me where to finish. I'm going to continue the line through, wait for the software. Okay, so it's not giving me the indication here, so it could be that it, in fact, it fully meets the ridge. So we'll terminate the line, connect those both up. Indeed, they're both equal in length. If we were to try and pull this model up, these two lines here may give us an issue. Let's try. Let's see if it does. It may not. So I'm going to grab this central ridge line here, just zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to pull up. No, it hasn't affected anything. I'm trying to make a deliberate mistake, but it didn't quite work. So these lines aren't affecting anything. But Richard, knowing how anal I am, I can't leave those lines in. So we jump back into 3D. And if you've made a mistake, you can simply flatten it using this flatten feature here. That flattens everything you've just pulled up. So from this center line, I'm going to pull up and I'm going to click on a facet. And so I want to ensure we're at 30 degrees. That then adjusts every other facet to match that. So 30 degrees here. These will be slightly different because they're hips and they're at an angle. However, the two main roofs that we're looking at, I'm looking here to see the tilt changing. So they're all 30 degrees. These are 31, so 1 degree off. But these two sections are 30 degrees. Okay, before we add some modules, let's look at obstructions. So this is quite a good one to ensure that we're nice and level with this black bar at the top. So if I offer that line up, it looks pretty good. Nice even distance across, possibly not absolutely perfect, so you can spend a little bit of time just trying to maneuver that there. That looks good to me. Then we're going to look at some obstacles. So I'm going to add these chimneys in first. Select the obstacle, zoom in, and then just draw over the outline of the chimney. So I can do that. I can plot them all manually like this. Repeat the process, but now when I jump into 3D, I've now got to adjust their heights individually. When chances are they're all the same height, and chances are they're also all in line on the roof. So let's jump back into 2D, delete this one and delete this one. Let's go into 3D and put this to the exact height that I want. For effect, let's say it's 800 mil above the roof. Granted, it's pretty high. Then we can jump back into 2D, click once on this, Control and C, hover in the middle of the next obstruction that's the same as this one, hit Control and V, hit Control and V. Now when I jump into 3D, it's kept the same parameters. You'll see there, 0.8, and here, 0.8. It kept the same parameters as the first obstruction that I've drawn, which is a great time saver. Not so much an issue on 3 chimneys, but when you've got a commercial roof with, I don't know, 40 to 50 skylights, possibly more, individually adjusting those to flush them into the roof can be an issue. So we haven't mentioned flush. We'll look at some skylights in a second and I'll show you how you flush an obstruction into the roof. But something I did want to show you is how to make sure your obstacles are in line, because chances are the chimneys are in line on the roof. Let's delete those. What I like to do is use lines within the roof that you delete afterwards. So you're creating your own guidelines. So I'm just going to click on the corner there. And again, I'm looking for this line to go dark green. As this line goes dark green, you'll see this line also goes dark green, which indicates I'm parallel with that line. I can then simply float a line across, terminate it anywhere, it does not matter at this point. And then if you want to be super precise, bring one down, bring another one down here. So they're guidelines. So I know when I now copy, Control and C, and paste, Control and V, paste, Control and V, I know now I can pick this up, just press once with my left click, offer it into position, and the same with this one, offer it into position, and again, spend as much or as little time on this as you want. Delete the guidelines I've just entered, jump into 3D, and I know now they're perfectly in line on that roof. They're all the same height because we copied and pasted the first obstruction. We've got many obstructions on this roof. So we've got another chimney here, so it's Control and C, Control and V, and then here, Control and C, Control and V. And then we've got some additional chimneys here. Let's treat them slightly different. Let's draw a new obstacle. Let's say they're long and thin. And then let's adjust that in 3D first, so that when I copy and paste it, don't have to adjust them all individually. So we'll say this one is 2 meters high, which I know is crazy, but it visualizes well. Into 2D, Control and C, Control and V, Control and V. Don't need to Control C every time, because once it's on the clipboard, you can keep pasting until the object that you're pasting changes. Control and V, Control and V, Control and V, Control and V. Okay, I think that's all the obstacles there. Into 3D, and now we'll see everything I've just pasted has kept all the same properties. They're all 2 meters high. Same as this side. What you can do, say you don't want them 2 meters high, but you don't want to change them individually, you don't want to delete them and then copy and paste the new one, you can click one, hold Control, select them all, see them all going blue. You can still pan while you're holding Control. Select all the tops of them there. You can then enter one measurement, so 1.2. Zoom out so you can see them all. Hit enter. Let's try again. 1.2, and they've all changed in height. So they're little shortcuts to make your life easier and speed up your development process. Richard, any questions on obstructions so far?
Yeah, there is a question actually, and it's about the height of the obstructions and how can you gauge the height of the obstructions if you've not attended site. And that would simply be go to Google Street View.
Yeah,
so,
you can have a conversation with the customer. However, if you view on Google Maps, jump into Street View, hopefully there's a Street View here, yeah. It's actually a block of flats, didn't know that. So yeah, you can roughly gauge. I mean, that's definitely 0.5 meter, maybe 0.6. It's just a question of using an educated guess, really, because the vent stacks there. There's not much I can say other than it's a question of eyeing it up and trying to guess, really. If you consider each one of these stories is probably 2.5 meters high, roughly 2.5 circles covers them. Doesn't really work like that, but yeah, it's just a case of eyeing it up.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to show that you can go to the Google Earth in project info, and well, also you could open up a different window as well and go into Google Earth Street View. So
yeah,
thanks.
so I know what comes up quite regularly is skylights, and I mentioned I'd show you how to flush an obstruction into the roof. I always call them obstructions, but designer terms them as obstacles. So let's delete those, and let's pretend for a minute we have a skylight here. Once I've plotted the skylight, or any obstruction for that matter, I'm not happy with the dimensions. I can click once and use these corner sections here. I'm just checking that I squared up. Yeah, I'm fine. So you can click these blue sections here. Let's say we want 0.8 by 3.5. You can simply click once on a corner, offer it down. It gets a little bit treacherous. 0.8, 3.5. Perfect. Okay. So now, if I was to Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, go into 3D, you can see that they're treating them like chimneys. Obviously, skylights are typically flush to the roof or ever so slightly higher than the roof. So you can flush it by just double clicking it, flushes it to the roof, or you can unflush it by double clicking again, select it once and use this flush feature here. You can do that on each of them, or you can, similarly to how I changed the height of the chimneys, you can press Control once, hold, select two and flush them down. Or the best way to do that is, as I showed you with the chimney, change the parameter of the first one, i.e. flush it to the roof, and now every time I copy and paste, we now have flush skylights because it's kept the properties of the original, and they're much the same, keeping them in line. You can just offer yourself up a guideline, ensure that they touch the top, and again be as precise or as unprecise with it as you want. And if you want to ensure that there's certain distances apart, you can simply start your guideline, click the line anywhere to terminate it, press escape, press on the line. So I want the skylight 2 meters apart. I can simply enter 2 meters here. That's going to give me a 2 meter line. I can then marry that skylight up. Now, once I've got that, let's delete these. I can now simply highlight that, hold Control, select the line as well, Control and C, Control and V. I can then offer that up. Same again, Control and V, and now I know my skylights are 2 meters apart. And the more of them you have, you can now use your blue box, highlight them, Control and C, Control and V. So you'll see they start to build themselves very quickly, in effect. Just want to add some modules on this roof quickly. Let's jump into module placement. I don't know where these have come from, excuse me. Okay, so best to pay attention when designers trying to give you a nudge to refresh the screen. So let's do that quickly. Okay, so just quickly, if I use my Add PV Modules feature here, let's go for a jar, 380, that's fine. Black, let's add some spacings in, 2x2, portrait modules. If I add and drag these modules on, so I've clicked once with the left click, just going to cover the roof, not paying too much attention to the distances around the edge at the moment. We can see that these aren't ideally placed in between those skylights. If I try and click once, it highlights the whole array. I then try and move, they all move as a whole, which is not ideal. So if you delete them and add separate sections, so I add a section here and stop, add PV modules again, add another section here, add another section here, and I'll just add one more section, say here. You can now click on those individually and move them as you need to. So rather than moving as a whole chunk or block, you can move the individual arrays. As we've got a load of obstructions on the roof, let's turn this Irradiance feature on. We can now see the software is giving us a nice indication of light or irradiance that's going to hit the surface, and it's complemented with a percentage there. So you'll see around the chimney the percentage reducing. So someone asked earlier in the questions about the shading. This is the Irradiance feature here. So until you've got some obstructions, or you look at the other side of the roof or another building in front, you won't necessarily see any shading implication on your array. But you can see around the obstacles here, 50%. Indeed, on the north side of the roof, it's northerly, northwest. You can see here, it definitely gets a bit gnarly in terms of irradiance or light hitting the roof. So you probably wouldn't be placing a module right up against this chimney, for example. Yeah, I'm going to move to the next site, Richard, unless there's any further questions.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a real good example actually for the shading implications, the different facets of the roof. And obviously when it comes to that summary page, it does calculate all of that shade that's actually going to inhibit the production of the system as well. So it's a really nice example to actually show as well an end client why you're actually choosing the roofs that you're choosing. You know, potentially if the angle of the roof is shallower. So for example, I think on this one you've got 30 degrees. If the roof pitch was down at say 10 degrees, then potentially the generation would be much higher on say that north facing roof. So Chris is just obviously reading my mind straight away. Bring that facet down. So now we're at say 10-degree pitch, and this is obviously quite important for commercial projects. Now when we click on the Irradiance, you can see that actually the generation on that north-facing roof is at 77% because that pitch is now lower. But equally, the generation on the southerly-facing roof is now actually lower as well because we've actually brought the whole pitch down. So it's quite important that you get see the right angles of the roof to show the generation. But also as well, you can see that Chris has now got issues because he had the pitch up, it was longer. So now you can't actually fit the modules actually on that roof as well. So it's quite important that you get the right pitch.
Cool.
Yeah, good to go.
Let's move along. Sorry, I didn't quite realise the time. Site 4. Okay, fair bit going on here. Quite an easy one to get wrong. Plus the imagery is not great. But let's just take it a point at a time. Let's start in this back corner. Offer a line along. Again, paying attention to the right angles. You will get bored of us saying that, but it is super important. Pay attention to the indications the software is giving me. I'm just plotting the outline of the building, making sure I'm at right angles. I'm going to come out for this dormer section here. Software is giving me a nice indication there. I'm going to come along and it's telling me where to finish that last line. Okay, perfect. Let's deal with this dormer first. I'm going to find the center point, much the same as what we've done before. The software is going to tell me where to finish. Perfect. Let's draw in a ridge line here. So I'm looking for that turquoise dot, and you'll see on the imagery, my ridge line isn't quite matching the image. However, I've got the corners of the property in situ. And I'm equal both sides. So although it's not in line with the image, doesn't mean it's not a true drawing or symmetrical. Find the center point of this dormer. Now, it may not give me a suggestion to finish here. So it's trying to get me to finish to this bottom corner, but naturally I want to be at these top two corners. So I'm simply going to bring that up and connect it to the ridge. And then going to come down to these two sections here, 5.17 and 5.17. And quite quickly, as complicated of a roof as that is, we jump into 3D now, and I select this central line and bring it up, and again change my inclination to 30 degrees, for example. It changes all the others connected to it, and the property's modeled quite quickly. What we did see is there's a chimney in the center of the roof there, So let's just square our image up. I'm using my mouse wheel to rotate the image, offering it up to that black line just to try and get it nice and square. Then I can have my chimney. Let's just for visual effect, let's put a big chimney in there. Go to 3D. I can now drag the chimney up and you'll see an obstacle or chimney can cross multiple diagonals and ridges. You could then add your modules as you see fit. You've got this outbuilding here. You could choose to add that either just for aesthetic purposes to make the design look extra fancy, or you may want to look at putting modules on it. This is simply a square. Again, observe the right angles and the indication the software is giving you. Connect the lines up. Then with this type of roof, you simply want to connect the corners, jump into 3D. That's now going to give me a ball in the center. I can just click that ball, drag up, and there's the garage modeled as well.
Amazing.
So again, I think that was less than 3-4 minutes, but quite a complex property, and your garage modeled nice and quick just by observing the lines and the indication the software is giving me. Okay, let's move to site 5. Okay, so quite often you'll find your imagery is skewed. So here we have a nice commercial site, big roofs. However, I can see an awful lot of face to this section of the building here, an awful lot of the side of the building here. And again, you can see the sides of the building here. This suggests difficult to articulate and not be able to demonstrate with my hands, but this suggests the image is twisted. It's twisted away from us almost, which is why we're seeing so much of this face. So what we can do with this is use Google Earth to our advantage. So I've got Google Earth opened here. Indeed, this is the hospital that we're seeing. So good thing about Google Earth is it has 3D buildings. So this hospital actually has a 3D recreation within Google Earth. So what you can do is you can try and get nice and over the top. However, bear in mind with 3D buildings, because they are 3D, this section of the building as we're looking at it now doesn't match up with this section. So it's not going to be much use to us. What we're looking for is an image we can take from here and overlay it into the image we're seeing in Designer. So turn off your 3D buildings. This is now the image we're seeing in Designer because we can see all this face and the side of the buildings. So it's not much good to us to import the same image over the top. What we can use, one of the best features of Google Earth, is this timeline feature here. This will enable us, instantly I've got a better image. This will enable us to go back through time just by clicking the slider here. You can see the date changing here. This is a good image. Probably the best image we've seen. Everything's in line here. We can still slightly see some of the face, but it's about finding the best image you've got to work with. You don't just have to use Google Earth. You've got big maps. There's something called satellite maps, which has a number of different maps that you can choose from. However, 8 times out of 10, Google Earth is going to give you the best imagery. Bing Maps is nice and clear. However, you can never really get close enough to get the image you want. So the chances are this image from 2018 is going to be the winner. But let's just cycle back through. 2015, nice and blurry, not helpful. 2013 is nice and clear, but you can still see it skewed here. This corner isn't matching with this. I think the 2018 version is the best on this occasion. So what you do is go down to your search bar within Windows, type in snip and bring up your snipping tool, which will bring you up with this. You then simply hit new. The snipping tool is available on most Windows devices, as far as I'm aware. This is now going to let you drag a box, release the box. It's now going to let you file save as, and you can save that on your desktop or in your design files, somewhere where you can use it later. And it will save as a PNG or a JPEG. That's what you want, PNG or JPEG. I'm not going to save it because you can see I've already saved it here. I'm going to close Google Earth, back into Designer. Okay, we're now going to use this background image feature here. Great feature within Designer. It can be used for new builds, CAD files, or imagery that's going to be very difficult to design to. So I've selected the image that we've snipped and saved, and I'm going to hit open. We're now at what I call the lollipop screen, definitely not the official name. And we can select this yellow lollipop and this blue lollipop. And the idea is, this is the image we're seeing in Designer currently. This is the image we're looking to overlay into Designer. So the idea is to plot these at points. So I'm going to use this back corner here. And again, I'm just zooming in and out with my mouse wheel and panning with the right button. And I'm going to put the lemon lollipop on this corner. So I now know I've got to match this blue one here and this yellow one here. It's important to get the right elevation of the building that you're matching up. Now you could put it anywhere within this drawing and it will do the same job. Effectively what it's doing is matching up the scale between the lollipops with the image it's seeing. So when I bring this one over here and put it on this back corner, just there, take a bit of time and make sure they're nice and accurate, and then you hit adjust. Through the wonders, our new image has now been overlaid over the top of what we were seeing. So if I use this transparency feature here, slide it all the way up, that's the original image. This is our new image. So what we're really looking for is this straight line down here and how much it moves in comparison to the original image. And the answer is not much at all. If you imagine that we grabbed that building and we untwisted it, this is hopefully what we'd see. Now you can move this along, lower this up slightly, you put it there. However, what you're most interested in is the building itself. So by doing that, I've kind of deviated away from the original building. So with that transparency feature, you can just see the outline here of my new image. Let's put that back into position there. Apply that. Perfect. Now we can start to model, which I'm not going to do because this one will take a little time. But you can now start to model to that image that you've overlaid. And indeed, this image is really good because it does show the shading that's caused by the main buildings. So yeah,
got loads of comments about this. Amazing, never knew you could do this. This is brilliant, I love it. Can you also use drone photographs for this as well? Yes,
absolutely. Yep.
Can it be done on residential? Yes.
Yes.
And there is something else we're going to show as well, but there's been a couple of questions about new build as well. If the property doesn't exist, yes, as well. So this feature, as you can see, is in site modeling, and you're in 2D, and it's just up there in the top right hand corner, background image. So sometimes you'll find where, no matter where you are, either in this country or around the world, that sometimes the images are really quite blurry, but it's just because it's come from a satellite image. So this does allow you to then carry on using the designer by overlaying an image over the top. So great bit to show, Chris.
No worries. And you can spend as much time as you like, really. Sometimes the lollipops, you won't have got them quite right the first time. If that happens, you can discard the image, re-edit. You can resize it here. I'd err on the side of caution with that. You can rotate it here. You can rotate it here also. But once you deviate too far away from the original, you can lose yourself quite easily. So if in doubt, just discard the image and start again. And now anything you model will be to that new image. It's a great feature. I use it pretty much every day. Okay. Site 6, what have we got here? Commercial building. Okay, you'll see here, I'm going to move ever so slightly faster, but it will be nice and quick. So let's use this start point here. Important,
really nice, shows how quick you can do a design.
Pay attention to your first line. Once you're happy with your first line, you're away. So plot your line. Paying attention to your angles. Software's giving me good indications. And we're flying. Finish with the first line. Boom. Take my magic wand. Irradiance tool. 3D. Done. You can change the pitch if you want to. 30 degrees seems to be a favourite of mine. I'm not sure why. But just because it's modelled it a certain way doesn't mean you can't change it afterwards. and then again you can start to add your obstructions. And again, if we go to PV module placement, go to the Irradiance feature here, we'll see the difference in the intensity of light that's going to reach this surface. Actually automatically added an obstruction there. I've never seen that before. That's brilliant. So here we've got 62%, 73%, 63%, 89%, until we get to the more southerly elevations where we're up at 98%. Obviously, we've not added in any obstructions yet, but this will all take effect in the summary and reports, and it will show a reduction through shading. Obviously, we're not afraid of the shade, and presuming everyone is aware of our concept of operation, and shading is not something that vastly affects our arrays. We maintain a strict fixed string voltage, so the optimizers are essentially doing a juggling act to ensure that fixed string voltage reaches the inverter for optimum conversion from DC to AC. So just because it's shaded doesn't mean that you can't put modules there. It will only affect the module that's shaded. It will not affect the rest of the string. I'm sure we'll deal with that in more detail on a later webinar. Okay, that was 6. This is 7. Okay, much the same. Hopefully do this quite quickly. Something like this can trip you up. It's tripped me up before. Let's start with this corner here and plot a line. Make sure I'm happy with the first line, and all the angles after it should fall into suit. So you'll see the image is slightly skewed, and I'm going to ignore, probably at my peril, ignore the indication the software is giving me. I'm just going to focus on these corners, focus on the diagonal, sorry, the horizontal dotted line there that tells me I'm in line with this. Zoom in. Again, paying attention to the right angles and the dotted lines. Finish there. Now, I'm going to bring these central ridge lines through here. Draw, find the center, turquoise button, bring it down so it matches turquoise button. Now you could find the center of this and draw the ridge across. However, that's not the true ridge, because this length is obviously longer than this length here. So what you want to do is anywhere along this line, connect the two up. Now find the center of the line and ensure it's dark green, i.e. it's parallel with these lines, and connect it up. You can now remove these. They were just guidelines. Designer's telling me to refresh, so let's do as we're told. So what it means is when it's asking you to refresh, it may have temporarily lost connection with the server. So it's doing you a favor by telling you that, because if you carry on, it may not be saving what you're doing. So if you'll notice it here where it says saved, every time I do something, it will say saving, and now it's changed to save. So it's verified communication with the server, and it's updated the design as you're seeing it. If it stops saving, doesn't go to saved, and you carry on modeling, you could potentially lose some work and pull out some hairs. Okay, grab this ridge line here, pull up, and again, you can change the inclination. Let's go 20 degrees on this instance. You could then quickly add some modules, PV module placement, select a facet, use these blue arrows. So this will, as you plot modules, let's use the jar again, it's just as it's in there. Let's go for landscape. As you plot a module, they can quite easily start running out of line with the ridge, and you won't notice it unless you're on a super large roof. But as long as you've hit that button, they will now be in line with this line or with the bottom line, wherever you press the arrow. Let's just run those across. Just wanted to show you really quickly. Let's try and center those up just by eye. Not paying too much attention to the edge distances. Let's click back on that. Let's look at row offset. Change that to 50%. It's now going to offset every row as I bring it down. So that should stagger down the roof nicely. I mean, that is super tight. Probably wouldn't want that last row. If I was to do the same here, add modules, and turn the row offset off 0%. Try and get that roughly in line. Here, I can then manually bring them down. You'll see on this facet, I've got 64 modules, and with a bit of luck, on this facet, I've managed to fit 2 more modules just by using the stagger feature. So it is a feature that's there, and it is worth entertaining and looking, because an extra 2 modules is always good. Same amount of rows, because it's staggered, it's enabled us to fit 2 more modules. Okay. Site 8, unless there's any further questions there, Richard?
No, just again, more comments about how cool is that. Didn't realise that was in there. It's great. It's great to see. There's so many tips and tricks throughout the whole session. I mean, even I'm learning as well. So it's really good. It's really good, Chris.
Okay. This is a really nice piece. Can show the depth and detail that designer can go into. I mean, it's a developer's consultant's dream, really. And even from this, it's moved on several stages, but this still visualizes really nicely. I didn't have a hand in this, and this was before my time at SolarEdge. I think this was Alberto and Richard. If we jump into site modeling, we'll see a green space here, prime for a new development. So if we jump into site modeling, back to what I said about
this is the final one, by the way. So this is the final one.
Sorry,
we've done in 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
Back to what I said about overlaying CAD drawings and scaling them in. You can see here, if I turn on the background image and increase the transparency, and then slowly fade it in, you can now see the outlines of the CAD drawing that was provided lined up with the building, and slowly fade it back in. You can now see the new development. Apply that. Someone has then gone through and modeled all of these individually. Now when you hit 3D, you've now got your new development scaled in using images that are already existing. Even the plot numbers here have pulled up on the drawings, which is beautiful. Then into PV module placement, you can now quickly see 2 specification. Someone's gone through this building by building, possibly a sports hall here or a commercial setting, but all the properties have had the modules added. Sorry, Richard, I thought you was going to say something.
No, sorry. I was just, sorry, mate. Yeah, no, amazing.
Okay. So yeah, it gives a really good indication of what's possible, what you can do, what you can achieve, and a lot of people still find it hard to believe how easy it is to do once you've done it a few times.
Correct. And that's the main thing as well. And this is why we're doing this training regularly, to just show you how easy it is. I mean, Chris actually started with SolarEdge with us. When was that, Chris? June, July, was it?
June, yeah.
So June. So I mean, you've only been here 5 months, and obviously you are doing it a lot, quite frequently and a lot more often than some people. But essentially, it's such a really, really powerful software, not only for you to actually show the client, but also as everything that I've said with the modules, with the generation, with the report, the summary, the consumption. It's really, really powerful to actually show that. And once again, it is one of the reasons why SolarEdge is a more expensive product, because it's the value and it's the actual software that we're actually providing to customers. It's not just about the price of the inverter, it's about what you're actually getting for that as well, and what your customers are receiving with that. So
someone asked a question earlier about shading loss, and I did say if you add obstructions, models, trees into it, you will get a calculation of the shading irradiance loss, and there it is. So albeit minor, because our topology mitigates shading, it does calculate and it will show it. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then finally, there's a couple of questions that have come through about a recording. You will get this recording sent to you on Monday. If it's not sent by our marketing team, then I personally will send it myself. So Yes, you will get a recording for it. Next week, we've got the advanced, and next week, we're going to be answering quite a few questions that people have asked today about different heights of roofs, the split function that we've got in there, flat roof systems, and trees. Now, trees is one thing that we've been waiting for a long time. The trees are actually within there, so we will be going over that. And I believe next week as well, we will be going over the tab, which we haven't even gone on yet, which is the financials. Where with the financials, you can actually then input the price of the power that people are purchasing at. So obviously currently it's energy prices have gone up. So it's a really nice calculation in the design as well to then on the report page show what the payback period is going to be, what the price is going to be, and provide this complete to your client. So that's that. A couple of questions have come in since then. I want Chris's job. Brilliant. Can you tell me, you might show about adding ground frame? Yes, so ground arrays is next week as well. So whether it's a multi-megawatt site, whether it's a 10 kilowatt ground array into a garden or something like that, we will be showing that one next week as well. It's very similar to flat roofs. But yeah, once again, join us next Friday where we'll be going over each of these different things. So just want to say thanks very much, Chris. Thanks, Bob. Once again, you're here. You're an absolute legend. Thanks, guys. And thank you for joining. Thank you, Chris. There is a session, a survey just after this as well. Please, we do read your feedback. If there's something that we're not showing you or we're going too fast or too slow, please just tell us. Please give us your feedback so then we can adapt our trainings going forwards. Thanks very much. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.